We are on the record and the time is 1:02. Today is March 10, 2020. This is the video deposition of Orion Keifer and the matter of Mayra Martinez versus Sheriff Mike Williams et al. Will counsel please identify themselves for the record and the court reporter will swear in the witness.
John Phillips and Kirby Johnson on behalf of the plaintiff.
Gabby Young on behalf of Sheriff Mike Williams.
I think so.
Paul?
Derek Jowdy on behalf of Officer Borisade.
And there's an agreement that any objections made by one of the defendants will be adopted by all defendants in this case. Is that right, Mr. Phillips?
I mean, not necessarily adoptable, I guess, not adopted, adoptable. So one objection preserves the right to object for all defendants.
Thank you for that clarification.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this cause is the true self you got?
I do.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record.
Orion Keifer, K-E-I-F-E-R.
Mr. Keifer, we've met before.
We have.
We've gone through this before.
Yes, sir.
You've had your deposition taken before.
Yes, I have.
What did you bring with you today?
I brought my entire file, and I brought some additional things like the videos and things that were voluminous on a CD drive.
Give me like a verbal index, if you can, of what you have with you.
Okay, I have on the left-hand side, I have a reference for perception reaction, the subpoena, my CV, and the Rule 26 trial and deposition lists. On the right, I have my report, a diagram that was drawn in the Sally Port, various screenshots that were used in my report and for developing the computer-generated information. I have a group of photographs from the Sally Port. It's frame by frame. I have a group of photographs frame by frame from the dashcam video. I have some photographs that were provided by the client, and that apparently was during the investigation that was conducted concerning the incident. Let's see. I have the AI file and report. I have an interview transcribed from Officer Chastain, one from Officer Andres, the Martinez depot, the Vickery depot, various pleadings, correspondence, and then a correspondence section.
There was something handwritten in there. What was that? It looked like something that was in notes or something. Did I miss it? It was about that deep. It was somewhere. Well, there's multiple. It looks like.
Yes, it's my custom and go reviewing depositions to take notes, and that's done on the green engineering pad. And similarly for Vickery's deposition.
Okay. Perception reaction. You said there was some sort of report or review or something. What did you bring with you that's on the outside?
Well, I mean, the most definitive one, I mean, there's been a lot of perception reaction type tests done. Okay, and one of the ones that is one of the better ones involved accident reconstruction because it divides the population by younger and older. It looks at perception reaction time, totally unalerted, alerted, and also with a synthetic trigger for pressing the brake. And so that is generally what I use on perception reaction.
Okay, I'd like to attach that. I don't want to attach your whole file.
Okay.
So I'd like to attach your perception reaction paper or a copy of it as plaintiff's one.
Okay.
Can I see your exhibit list? I mean, your Rule 26 disclosure list? I think it was, you said it was on that side.
You're talking about the, yes, the.
Testimony.
Mhm.
Do you know how many occasions you've so obviously we're dealing with the consolidated city of Jacksonville, I guess.
Yes.
Do you know how many times you've been retained by Jacksonville or any of its entities or agencies, including JSO, the school system, any agencies within the city of Jacksonville?
Not offhand, no.
Okay. Do you know how you could calculate that? I mean, is there a way that you or AEGI keeps those records?
Yes, it can be screened.
Okay. How many? When was the last time before this one that you were retained on a case involving allegations against the law enforcement?
I can recall one previous time. There may be more, but and there's been some traffic accidents that involve involve a police cruiser, for example. There's been at least a couple of those.
Ruling out the traffic accidents, what are the other occasions where you've been retained to opine related to law enforcement agencies?
Objection of form.
Okay, that particular one was, we did some testing about muzzle flash. The shooting was involved, and, the effect of the muzzle flash at night.
What is this activity log?
That's a way that I keep track of my time.
Okay. So we'll attach your deposition list, Rule 26 disclosure and trial list as composite exhibit 2. And then your activity log is exhibit 3. You indicated some level of photographs or photographs that were produced from the city or JSO?
Yes, and I think it was in conjunction with the IA investigation.
Okay.
And those are in this group.
Could I see that, please?
Yes.
Have you ever been to the scene?
Objection of form.
Have you ever been to the pretrial detention facility, aka Sallyport?
I have, yes.
When did you go?
Yeah.
So you don't lose your spot.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, it looks like that was April 24th, 2018.
'24th, 2018. How long were you there?
I don't know, a couple hours probably.
What did you do?
Well, I took a bunch of measurements. We did a whole group of photographs, did a Faro scan of that area to get a three-dimensional picture of the area, identified where the video camera was, or the surveillance camera. I did a little sketch of the Sally Port, for example. And those were the main things. We were trying to understand the geometry of the Sally Port.
Okay. I'm going to attach these photos as plaintiff's exhibit. I've already lost count 4. Have you conducted any interviews of anybody involved with this incident?
I have not.
Okay. When you were at the Sallyport / pretrial detention facility, was there anybody else employed by you or AEGI who assisted you?
Yes,
Who?
Wes Richardson.
Okay. Is that the other individual on your report? Or is there I think I saw another individual.
Yes, well, we do a internal review. That was Brian Moody that did the internal review.
So what did Mr. Richardson do and what did Mr. Moody do?
Wes Richardson is our computer guy. So he's the one that built the three-dimensional computer model and used a human surrogate, a kind of a mannequin, to in place of Officer Borisade, and to check the visibility for Officer Andres and the other officer that was there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Chastain.
Chastain, yes.
What? So you've testified a lot. I think you know how state and federal courts work.
Yes.
What do you provide that? So there's video of this incident. Is that fair?
There is.
Okay. What do your opinions provide that the video doesn't provide?
Objection form.
It specifically provides the view from Officer Andres and Officer Chastain's viewpoint. The video is a single view, but that does not it does not show what Officer Andres and Chastain would have seen. So that's what that adds. The second thing it adds is it takes the perception reaction time. It takes time to go through the sequence of perception and reaction, which includes the detection, the identification, the decision, and the response. So that takes time. It further takes time to move from the position that Officer Andres and Chastain were to the area where Officer Borisade was.
Okay. And those are reflected in your, I think, 7 opinions that you've indicated in your report?
Correct.
Do you have any
yes.
other opinions?
No, I think those 7 opinions and obviously the verbiage that supports those opinions are how I came up with the analysis.
Fair. In the Rule 26 disclosure review, it indicates that you charge $280 per hour.
That's correct.
Okay. What are we being charged for purposes of today? $280 per hour?
We are, yes.
And then there's some portal to portal or some other, more than you're sitting at this table. What other charges are we incurring?
Portal to portal mileage.
Okay. And so we gave you a check for the deposition.
Correct.
For that, I think you wanted a $1,400, I don't want to call it a retainer. We've gotten in that discussion before, but a prepayment.
Prepayment, yes.
Okay, and so you'll refund back whatever the difference is?
That is correct, yes.
Fair enough. Do you know how many hours you've worked today? And if you need to take any of these back, you're welcome to them. But do you know how many hours you've put in, as we sit here today, for the city of Jacksonville or its officers on this case?
I will have to look back at the billing. Okay, I have billing, assuming that I added it correctly, is about 39 hours. And then about 3 hours yesterday and about 3 hours today in preparation for the depot.
How did you prepare?
I reviewed my notes, I reviewed my report, I gathered the various photographs that were involved, pulled out some specific groups of photographs that are actually the frame by frames from both incidents, so that that's available for me to talk about if that's necessary. Those are the main things. And I did have a conference with Miss Young as well.
Okay. At $280 an hour?
Correct.
So approximately $12,600?
That seems about right.
Whatever
somewhere.
39
Yeah.
plus 3 times 280 is? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, I can calculate it if you
Yeah,
want.
no. I'm
It's-
just, whatever, the math would be, just to simplify it, 39 plus 3 plus 3, which is 45,
Yes.
right? Times 280.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, as we sit here today, if you have any other cases with the city of Jacksonville or its departments or subdivisions ongoing now?
I believe I do.
Who's got the building? After all that yesterday. You previously testified, I believe, that 98% of your work involves litigation expertise. Has that changed, or do you want to modify that?
I would say of my professional work, paid professional work, somewhere in that range, could be a little less.
Some more Keifer statistics from prior depots with me, 7 to 80% on behalf of the defense of that. Is that still accurate?
I think it's probably closer to 70 to 75 defense.
Okay.
I have a number of plaintiff's cases.
I think you said, quote, probably more than 51% are auto crashes.
I think that's still correct.
Okay. Have you reviewed this case at all from the standpoint of whether Mayra Martinez could have or was injured in this incident or these incidents?
Objection of form.
No, I was not asked to look at that.
Okay. You've provided those opinions in the past on other cases.
Objection to form.
In some cases, yes.
Okay. From, for instance, the standpoint of delta V or a use of force in an automobile context incident as to whether the occupants, whether there was enough force on the occupants to be injured. You've opined in that regard.
Objection to form.
Well, I wouldn't put it exactly that way.
How would you put it?
Okay, I have looked at biomechanical effects and compared those to known things like amusement park rides, that kind of thing. And also where human occupant testing has been done and those types of things. So I've made those comparisons from a biomechanical standpoint.
Okay. And you haven't been asked to, you haven't been asked to do that related to Mayra Martinez.
Objection to form.
That is correct.
Okay. Main thing I'm trying to get at is you weren't asked to do it and had an adverse opinion, and so the opinion was left out.
No, I was
Okay.
not asked to look at the biomechanics.
Okay. Do you have any opinions related to whether a person could sustain a bulging disc or a herniated disc from the incidents you saw in the video, either video?
Objection to form.
I do not.
Okay. Have you conducted any investigation or reviewed any records, either employment records or medical records, optometrist records, ophthalmologist records, good old-fashioned eye doctor records for Andres, Vickery, or Chastain?
I
Objection to
have not.
form.
Okay. What is peripheral vision?
Well, there's a foveal vision, which is the center, and then the vision acuity drops off as you move to the side.
Okay. People often put fingers on either side to see, to see how far it can go back.
Correct, yes.
Let's do you. How far can you see your fingers using your peripheral vision?
Objection to form.
It's fairly far back.
Okay,
Yes,
let's-
you have peripheral vision.
Let's do it if you don't mind.
Objection to
Sure.
form.
Can you see both of your fingers right now?
Yeah, I
Objection
mean,
to
I can't
form.
identify that they're fingers, but I can tell that there's fists there, and I know my fingers are up. So,
Okay. Let's go as far back as you can to actually be able to see your fingers.
okay.
Form.
I'd say about there.
Okay. Did you factor in peripheral vision of the officers when you issued your reports?
Objection to form.
To an extent, I looked specifically at for where they were looking, which is their foveal vision.
You looked at folio.
Yes, that's where their main visual acuity occurs. So, as you move off from that, then the visual acuity drops off significantly.
Okay. Does our brain, when we're seeing things, does our brain factor in other senses such as what somebody's hearing to put together a mental picture? Does that make sense?
Objection to form.
Sure. I
Okay.
mean, we have our five senses, and those inputs are combined together in the brain, and that's why people will look towards something that is happening or they perceive is happening. So, if you hear a car crash, you have a tendency to look in that direction to see what's going on.
Did you ever go out to scores?
I did not, no.
Did you attempt to do a recreation of the incident at scores at any point?
No, I was observing what was on the video and frame by frame.
Did you attempt to do a recreation or simulation of the pretrial detention facility incident at any point?
Say that one more time.
Did you attempt to do a recreation or simulation of the incident at the Sallyport or pretrial detention facility at any point?
In a matter of In one sense, yes. Okay, we used a three-dimensional computer model. We used appropriate sized, mannequins, if you will, to place positions of both Miss Martinez and Officer Borisade.
Do mannequins have peripheral vision?
Objection to form.
Well, I would say they have no vision. I mean,
Do mannequins?
The object was to see what was not obstructed from vision of Officer Andres and Officer Chastain. And so that's what we did.
Primarily focusing on folio vision, which is the vision ahead of you.
No.
Objection to,
What else did you focus on?
We
objection to form.
we focused on what was observable to the two officers.
Okay.
Okay, and Officer Andres responded, as I have in my report. Officer Chastain never looked in that direction, which is the natural response if you see something in your peripheral vision that you think of as concern is to see it better, you look towards it, and that did not occur.
Did you take into account Officer Chastain, Officer Vickery, or Officer Andres' deposition of last week?
Objection to form.
I did not have that available. When they're available, I would read them.
Okay. Was it Chastain or Andres that gasped? Why did Officer Andres gasp?
Objection to form.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay. Why did Officer Vickery call his supervisor?
Objection to form.
Well, it's a little outside of what I was asked to do. I have an understanding because I read the various reports.
What's your understanding?
My understanding is he was concerned about the amount of force that was used.
Are you aware of the text message he sent Officer Borisade after this was all over with that night?
Objection to form.
If it's in the report, I probably read about it. I don't recall it specifically.
Okay. You recall whether you factored in that text message in your opinions?
Objection to form.
That was outside of what my opinions were about.
Okay. I think it's fair to say you're not a expert, nor do you have opinions for purposes of today on police procedure, the policies and regulations of JSO or constitutional law.
That would be correct.
Let me attach your billing as plaintiff's 5. Any accounting of billing, please.
Okay.
What I hope happens is before you leave today, she'll just burn a copy of all this, and then you can put your file back together, so you have a complete copy of your file.
Okay.
Let's go into your opinions.
Sure.
I guess before we get there, and I pulled your kind of website bio. And obviously what one puts on a website certainly doesn't limit one's ability to say something off of a website. But from what's on the AEGI website, what of those specializations are you relying on for purposes of your testimony today?
Objection to form.
Well, I mean, perception reaction is frequently involved in various types of accidents, although not specifically listed there. The rest is pretty broad background and capabilities.
Okay. We'll attach that as plaintiff 6. So off of website, what expertise or training do you have that underpins or provides you the expert ability to render the opinions we're about to discuss?
Objection to form.
Well, there's a number of things, and I have a master's in biomechanics of trauma, which looked at things like vision and those things. There was a section on that. Also in accident reconstruction and other training that I've had, perception reaction time is a big part of it. I've done a lot of self-study in that area as well, various books, etc., and articles. So, and then it's a matter of looking specifically at the videos frame by frame and what can be observed there. And then the final thing is overseeing the building of the three-dimensional model, which we used for what could be seen by Officer Andres and Chastain.
Okay. Did you make any attempts to do a three-dimensional model at scores or related to scores?
No, it really, the answer is no. There's not, it doesn't really lend itself for that type of thing.
Okay. Opinion number 1. In the parking lot of Scores, Officer Vickery appears to be talking on the radio and was looking up and to the left, away from the interaction between Officer Borisade and Miss Martinez when Officer Borisade was trying to push Miss Martinez's head into the ground. Would I recite that correctly? Generally.
Yes, generally,
Okay.
yes.
Do you know why there's a distinction about, in your opinion, about specifically framed around the moments that Martinez's head is being pushed into the ground rather than when he was punching her?
Objection to form.
Well, it was specifically the question that I was asked.
Okay.
My understanding that it has to do with the type of force that's allowable, but I was asked to look at that particular part of the incident.
Okay. It's not your opinion that other forces used at the score scene, you're not here to comment about what's allowable under, I guess, under either policies and procedures or, the constitutional body of law related to use of force.
That is correct. I was not asked to look at that.
And you'll agree from a perception reaction, I guess, visual acuity expert that Vickery saw multiple strikes on Miss Martinez.
Objection to form.
I didn't look at that specifically, but based on the report, it appears so, yes.
Okay. Have you reviewed any of the other expert reports in this incident? For
Objection to
instance, Klinger,
form.
Dr. Klinger's report.
I have not.
You have the video pulled up of Vickery, or can you pull it up? The one with the frames. Bear with me. That's not the one. Here we go. So what we've done, how many frames did you say were in the scores video?
Objection to form.
The total number?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. In this video, we've broken it down to approximately, not approximately, but a total of 19. $1,953, so that we can refer directly to frames. And I'm gonna hand my computer to you, and basically you can go in between frames with the right or left arrow, in case you want to drive yourself, but I can also help drive, for lack of a better way to put it. But going to frame 309, and I'm also dealing with a camera and glare and everything else. I want you to be able to see it. Can you see it comfortably? Let me get rid of this so you can see the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's before I looked at I really looked at around the time of the incident.
Why did you limit the time of the incident? Why did you limit what you looked at related to the scores incident?
Well, I looked at the entire video, but frame by frame, I was asked to look at specifically the portion where it appears that Officer Borisade is pushing her head into the ground.
Okay.
So that's what I was asked to look at.
Okay. Are you aware his name's Officer Borisade?
Borisade?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
So from 309 to about 324, there appears to be Miss Martinez being struck to the point her hair appears to kind of fly as she's going down.
Objection to form.
Do you see that?
Objection to form.
So
I don't know that I can tell with that detail.
Okay. Can you tell with the detail that at least Officer Vickery is not looking away from 309 to 324.
Objection to form.
I can't tell for certain.
Okay.
It looks like he's facing towards her.
Okay.
But I can't tell for sure. Because again, I don't know all the context before and after.
362. Approximately 362 to 374. Let's go through that one a couple times. 362. It looks like Officer Borisade's arm goes up and comes down. Can you see that?
Objection to form.
I see what you're seeing. I don't know what exactly he's doing.
Okay. Can you tell whether Vickery is looking away at that point from 362 to 374?
It appears he's looking towards Miss Martinez.
Okay. 381 to 390. Run through it a couple of times. It appears that there may be contact by Officer Borisade. 381 to 390. Can you tell whether Officer Vickery is looking away at that point in time?
Objection to form.
It's hard to tell.
Okay. 397. Would you trust the jury's eyes?
Objection to form.
In context, they certainly may have an opinion on what's going on at that point. I mean, they have to make the decision, obviously.
They are the ultimate opinion, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And can a jury go through this frame by frame just as you can or we can?
It can be.
Objection to form.
It can be done. The context is important. In other words, watching it in its entirety and looking at specific frames for specific information makes sense.
Okay. I'm going to go up to 415 to 423. Do it a couple times. You see, what did I say, 415 to 423. Do you see Borisade appear to make contact there?
Objection to form.
Or at least his arm raised and lower?
Well, his arm does raise and lower. There is a time when he has his hand on the ground, or at least appears to.
Okay. Regardless of what he's doing between 415 and 423, is Officer Vickery looking away at that point?
Objection to form.
He appears to be, yes.
Looking away? 415. That's your opinion? He's looking away between 415 to 423?
Well, first of all, I didn't go through these portions in detail. I went through the portion that's later, as I stated. But it appears to me that he is not looking directly at Martinez at that point. His hand appears to be raised.
Okay, so you said you didn't look at this part, right?
Objection to form.
I looked at roughly this area at 315, and I was looking specifically at what Officer say Borisade?
Borisade.
Okay, Borisade was doing. And then I was looking specifically at Officer Vickery at the time of the head strikes.
So the picture you have is 17-13-35, and I'm looking at number A00415 to 423, which is 17-13-36, a second after your picture, right?
Objection to form.
Yes,
Okay.
Well, it shows a second after.
Okay. So he starts radioing about, I think, Let's see. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, it appears at this point that his hand is up, and then he turns towards the left.
Okay. Let me go up to 473. Okay. Here, I think 473 to 484 is where I think you're referring to, where Borisade appears to push Mayra's head down,
Correct.
but can we see what Vickery sees, or can we see what Vickery sees?
Objection of form.
473 to 484.
No, I mean, we can see, if you look at the sequence of frames, you can tell the direction that he's looking.
Okay.
I don't see any indication that he saw something that caused him to look more closely during that time.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what my opinion is.
He's on top of her, right?
Objection of form.
At that point, 473 to 484, he's basically sitting on a portion of, on or extremely close to Miss Martinez.
Objection of form.
I don't know that I can say that.
Okay, so then can you say what he feels from her body moving around?
Objection of form.
I don't know that he was touching at that point.
But you don't know that you don't know either way.
Objection of
Correct.
form.
Okay.
That is correct.
And do you know what he's whether he can hear the sound of a head hit the pavement at that point?
Objection of form.
Well, the head may or may not have hit the pavement. We don't know.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, prior to that time she had her arm underneath where her head was.
Okay.
And it looked like that there was difficulty in pulling her arm out to finish the handcuffing. But you can't visualize that in the area of concern.
489 to 494. Is that the other part where you believe Vickery's looking away?
He's looking.
Objection of form.
He's looking towards the right, where this that we're looking at.
But that was part of your opinions 1 and 2, that he
Yes.
couldn't see what was happening at this point.
Objection of form.
No, I don't think I said that. I think what I said was that he was looking away, not looking at what was happening. He was not looking in a direction to observe the interaction.
Okay. And do you know whether he felt the interaction or heard the interaction?
Objection of form.
He'll have to ask him.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure he knew that an interaction was occurring, but not the specific incident.
You'll defer to Vickery
Yes.
and the jury?
Objection of form.
What's that?
Will you defer to the jury?
Objection of form.
The jury has to make the decision.
Okay.
Yes. I mean,
525 to 538. Does there appear to be contact by 525 to 538? Does there appear to be contact between Officer Borisade and Miss Martinez at that point?
Objection of form.
it appeers to be.
Okay. Does Officer Vickery appear to be looking at 525 to 538?
Objection of form.
Yes.
Okay. 745. Let's jump up here. There we go. 745 to 753. Does there appear to be contact by Officer Borisade to Miss Martinez?
Objection of form.
Yeah, and again, this is past what I was analyzing, because I was analyzing a specific area as we discussed before.
Okay.
but it does appear so.
And does it appear, can you tell whether Officer Vickery is looking away at 7:45 to 7:53?
No.
Objection to form.
Okay. 7:63 to 7:69, does there appear to be some downward thrust or contact by Officer Borisade?
Objection to form.
There does.
Can we tell whether Officer Vickery is looking away at this point or looking towards the incident?
Again, I'd have to look a little before and a little after it, but we see his left arm, so it would appear he is looking towards Borisade.
Okay. Well, I think the last.
Or at least in that direction.
Okay, fair enough. 778, I think this is the last one. 778 to 783. Do you see Officer Borisade's arm come down?
I do.
Do you know whether he struck Miss Martinez at that point?
Objection to form.
No, I haven't tried to analyze that.
And do you know whether Vickery's looking at that point in time?
Objection to form.
His head is behind Borisade's head, so it's difficult to tell.
Okay. Have you interviewed either of the officers about, the strike at 362 to 374, 389 to 390, 397 to 402, 415 to 423, 473 to 484, 489 to 495, 525 to 538, 745 to 753, 763 to 769, or 778 to 783?
Objection
I
to
don't know what
form.
those are.
Okay.
I analyzed the head strikes.
Opinion 2 is basically, Officer Vickery was apparently not looking in a direction to observe the interaction between Officer Borisade and Miss Martinez when Officer Borisade was attempting to push Miss Martinez's head into the ground, nor was there sufficient time, less than 1 second, to intervene had he observed Officer Borisade doing so. Did I generally state that opinion correctly?
Yes.
Was there time between these other strikes for him to intervene?
Objection to form.
I didn't really analyze that.
Okay. Do you agree with me that if Officer Vickery had intervened at any point at scores and stopped the contact between Miss Martinez and Officer Borisade, that they may not have encountered each other at the pretrial detention facility? Does that make sense?
Objection to form.
I didn't look at that whatsoever.
Okay. Opinion 3, in the Sallyport, Officer Chastain was apparently looking toward the intake window and not in the direction of the interaction between Officer Borisade and Martinez until all punches were thrown. Is that your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who Officer Chastain was transporting?
I think it is in the report, but I would have to look that up.
I believe her name was Marquita Lewis, the African-American woman that was at the jail. Do you recall that?
Objection to form.
That would make sense.
Okay. Do you know whether he could see Miss Lewis at all times?
Objection to form.
I did not analyze that.
Okay. Is it Chastain that gasped? Or Andres? Okay. You can strike that. So, okay. Let me go to that video. You want to take a break? Okay.
We are back on the record at 2:01.
What kind of analysis did you do on the Sallyport video?
We were mostly looking for how much of Borisade and Miss Martinez was visible to the two officers, Andre and Chastain.
Referring to Chastain, I'm going to put my computer back where it was without trying to spill coffee. Which one is Officer Chastain, as you understand it?
He's right here.
Okay. Let the record reflect he is properly indicated Chastain, to my understanding at least. At 798, from I guess, let me go back. So 795 to about 798, do you see his head turned to the left?
Objection to form.
There is one point that he turns slightly to the left, yes.
Okay. Do you know what he's looking at 798, 799 and on?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then I think about 829, he goes back to looking straight. Let's see. Does he turn his head back right or straight about 826, about 829? You see that?
It appears so from the video.
Okay. And then about 850, do you see his head move? A little to the left again?
Objection to form.
Just slightly, yes.
Okay. Do you know what he's looking at 850 and onward? And
I do
upward?
not.
Okay. Did you see whether Officer Chastain ever came to Miss Martinez's aid after she was struck?
Objection to form.
Not during the portion of this video that I watched.
Okay.
I mean, I watched the entire video. Well, the entire video is fairly long, but I watched a fairly long section before and after. And I don't recall him going over there. I mean, the video kind of speaks for itself.
You don't have any opinions as we sit here today about whether or not officers should have provided medical care or whether or not they did or didn't?
Objection to form.
I was not asked to look at that. I read the IA report, but
Okay.
you know, I was not asked to look at that.
He said that. Okay. You'll agree when the video speaks for itself?
Yeah, I mean, the video shows what it shows, and there is additional things that you know, for example, the work that we did for the viewpoint of Andre and Chastain. You can't see that from this video, and that's why we did the computer graphics to do that, the CG.
Are you aware if Officer Borisade said that the computer monitor never instructed his vision or his view of the incident? Well, strike that, Borisade did. Are you aware if Officer Andres testified as to whether or not the computer monitor ever obstructed his vision?
Objection to form.
I don't know what he testified. I mean, not that I'm aware of, but you know, I know that there was a deposition that was done.
Are you aware of whether Officer Chastain testified whether or not the computer monitor ever obstructed his vision of the incident?
Objection to form.
I don't know.
Because you never talked to them.
Objection to form asked and answered.
I don't believe I have.
Okay. Opinion. Let's see.
Now,
Go ahead.
they may have been when I visited Sallyport, but I don't recall specifically.
Is that reflected in your notes anywhere about whether they were there or whether you talked to them?
No.
In the Sallyport, opinion 3, no, I've already gone through 3. 4, Officer Chastain noted he saw Miss Martinez's foot when she tried to kick Officer Borisade, was not looking in a direction to appreciate all that was happening between Miss Martinez and Officer Borisade, nor would she have had sufficient time, approximately 1.5 seconds, to intervene had he observed the punches being thrown. Does that generally describe opinion number 4?
Yes.
Objection of form.
Okay.
You said she and it's he.
It's he.
Yeah, I apologize. So I said generally.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction of the pronoun. Okay. 5. In the Sally Port, Officer Andres was looking in the direction of Miss Martinez when she came forward, was intercepted by Officer Borisade, and taken back toward the next wall to the vestibule wall. Does that accurately, generally describe opinion number 5?
Yeah, taken back towards the vestibule wall.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that just readily available? Is that just a recounting of what happens in the video?
Objection of form.
Yeah, I mean, it is based on the video and what we're observing on the video, and that is then put in context of the visibility of Borisade and Miss Martinez.
Okay. Opinion 6, Officer Andres started to move forward to help Officer Borisade approximately 1.5 seconds after the second kick to Officer Borisade by Miss Martinez and approximately 0.6 seconds after Borisade landed the first punch. That generally accurately reflect opinion 6.
Correct, yes.
Have you reviewed any statements from the individual named Officer or Officer Trainee Smith, the guy in the yellow shirt, this guy right here?
Only what's in the IA report.
Are you aware he said that he saw everything?
Objection of form.
I am not aware he said that.
Okay.
He would have had an obstructed view of the punches being thrown. I can say that.
Would you defer to Officer Smith about what he saw and what he said he saw?
No,
Okay. You wouldn't?
no. I mean, he says what he recalls, but it's like any other witness is when it is contradictory to the physical evidence, then I reject it. And it is contradictory to the physical evidence.
Did you post them? We have it's the prior deposition. Did you post them?
We have not, yeah.
So you completely reject Smith saying that he saw Borisade throw a punch?
Objection of form.
He probably could see a backswing, as we saw the same with Andres, but he wouldn't see the punch. All he'd see is the backswing of his arm. The view's obstructed from his angle.
Okay. Have you done any analysis to determine why Officer Andre said they got cameras here, don't be stupid?
Objection of form.
that is not something that my analysis covers.
Isn't there a bit of perception reaction to that too, though?
Objection to form.
Ask that one more time.
Yeah. Wouldn't a spontaneous statement, they got cameras here, don't be stupid, wouldn't that be an utterance in support of what one's perceiving and that being a reaction? I think that question was worse than my first one. I'll withdraw it. The expression, they got cameras here, don't be stupid, is it in any way factored into your analysis?
No,
Why not?
because it's not pertinent to my analysis.
Okay. What is perception reaction?
Perception reaction or response is probably a better term, is the series of things that you have to go through in order to respond to some stimulus. Okay, and that includes first the detection. The detection time is between when it is there to be seen and you actually detect it. Okay, then there's an identification to determine whether this stimulus is something that, what is happening, what they need to do. The next thing is the decision. It needs a response. What response is appropriate? And then that's followed by actually carrying out the decision in the response.
Okay, but isn't they got cameras here, don't be stupid, a literal response by Andres to something he's perceiving?
I don't know how that enters into my analysis.
If you do something wrong and I tell you they got cameras here, don't be stupid, wouldn't, and it's your expert opinion, not mine, wouldn't that be somebody reacting to a perception by its very nature?
Objection to form.
I don't know what that has to do with perception response time.
Okay.
I mean, it has nothing to do with the time.
Right, but does it is both, that is something that Officer Andres was perceiving, right? He perceived something to make that utterance, right?
Objection to form.
One
I would
think.
presume so, yes.
And that statement is, in essence, a response.
Objection to form.
Yeah, I would say that's a response.
Okay? Do we know what he perceived to give that response?
You'll have to ask him. I do not know.
So, Andres testified at about, this automatic locking is going to give me fits. At about, what'd you say, Kirby, 875? At about 875, so B00875, and I'm going back a couple more, 74?
873, 874.
Okay. He testified that basically in the 870s, he gasped. Did you do any analysis to determine what he could have perceived to be gasping at?
Objection to form.
Yes, I mean, we did an analysis of what he could observe.
Okay.
And he can observe the backstroke of the punches. But he can't see the punches, nor can he see Miss Martinez. At that point, it's obstructed.
Okay. So it's your opinion that Andres saw a backstroke of a punch?
It was there to be seen, is my opinion, and that's what's shown on the CG in my report.
Okay. Do you know whether, the question I almost asked would have been strange. But I think it's the way you ask it. Do you know whether Andres could see the location where Officer Borisade's testicles were?
Objection to form.
I didn't analyze that particular part of the video, okay, because I analyzed the punches, which is what I was asked to analyze. The first kick, it appears that he's, fairly far, that Borisade's fairly far out. We can go back maybe and look at the video, but at least the first kick was ended up pretty much straight leg. Right there.
There's one,
So he probably could see that because of the
two.
yeah, the second one he may or may not have been able to see. But the first one, Borisade is far enough back that he would have been able to see that.
You think he could see the location of the second kick?
I don't know. I have not analyzed that, but it appears that he'd be able to see the first kick. And that could be analyzed, but we didn't do that.
Why not?
We weren't asked to. We were asked to look at the punches.
Were you asked to look at the punches or asked to look at the perception of the officers of the punches?
Objection to form.
Ask that question one more time.
Were you asked to look at the punches or were you asked to look at the individual perceptions of whether or not they could view the punches?
Objection to form.
Neither. We were asked to look at what was there to see of the officers. What the visibility was of the two officers.
Well, we just got into a back and forth about whether you said. I think you said that you weren't asked to look at the kicks or where the kicks landed or who could see the kicks. Did you not just say that?
Objection
Yes.
to form.
You said that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was something that they could have seen. It just seems like your statement to me, and I'm not trying to pick on you on this, was a bit overbroad. And I just want to know what were you asked? What was your specific role and function in this case? What were you specifically asked to opine?
Objection to form.
I was not asked to opine anything. I was asked to do an investigation of some specific portions of the incidents.
Was that done in writing?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, and the ones, the specific acts that were of concern was the apparent pushing Martinez's head towards the ground, and the other one was the punches of Borisade in the sally port. So the question is, could the officers have observed the punches? And they could see the backstroke, but they couldn't see the much of the coming forward and the contact because it's obscured by the primarily there's a sanitizer that is there. There's a couple of monitors there. There's also a sheet of paper that was taped to that window. So those things, and the wall comes high enough, it's well above where the punches actually landed anyway. Okay, so that's what we were asked to look at. Could they see the punches and appreciate that the punches were occurring? Our analysis shows that they could see the back stroke of an arm, but they couldn't see the punch. Do
you know what they could hear?
I do not know.
Okay. So if somebody if I turn to Kirby and and my computer's blocking it, and you see my arm go back, and you hear something, and he falls out of the chair, did I hit him?
Objection to form.
They couldn't see whatever happened to Miss Martinez. That was obscured. They couldn't see that.
But can people put together circumstantial evidence to make a educated decision about what happened if they see an arm going back and coming forward and somebody falling down?
Objection to form.
All of those things takes additional time and perception reaction.
Okay.
Okay, you know,
She's going to object to this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it just to be.
Should I just object now?
To be clear, as you sit here today, you have never talked to any officer regarding their perception of what they perceived at the time of the incidents described in the complaint, including perception of the punches.
Objection.
to the best of my recollection, no. I think that, as I said, the officers may have been there. I may have asked some questions, but I don't recall specifics on that.
Have you given us all of the opinions you anticipate giving at trial as we sit here today?
Yes, unless I'm asked to do something else, or the depositions, which apparently are not available quite yet, spur something else.
Mr. Johnson, any other questions?
I can think of.
Bear with me. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Keifer, I think Mr. Phillips asked you about your opinions listed 1 through 6, but there's actually 7 opinions in your report.
There are 7, yes.
Okay, and the 7th one was in regard to whether Officer Andres had sufficient time or insufficient time to respond to the last punch being thrown by Officer Borisade. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can you tell us what exactly was the analysis to form that opinion?
I can. From the first punch to, and I think I have it in my report, there's a fairly short period of time from the first punch to the third punch. So 2 things has to happen. One, he has to go through the perception reaction to decide that he needs to take action and what action that he's going to take. Second thing, he has to move from where he is to the area that Mr. Borisade was at and Miss Martinez was at. And that is about 5 or 6 steps, so that also takes time. And so the whole incident was over before he could possibly get in that area.
So what you're saying is that the entire incident where Officer Borisade is striking and punching Miss Martinez was over before Officer Andres had the perception and response time to intervene in that
Object for.
and stop.
Sorry, object for.
Correct, yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Paul?
I just have a couple short questions. Mr. Keifer, is it fair to say that Officer Officers Chastain and Andres, considering that they didn't have an opportunity to view what Officer Borisade was doing, in your opinion, they also didn't have the opportunity to view what Martinez was doing, other than the initial kick.
I need you to repeat that. It was kind of in and out, and I don't know that I even got a complete question.
Okay. I'll try and break it down. In reference to your opinion that Officers Chastain and Andres did not see the punches, are you following me so far?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that it would be your opinion, or is it not your opinion, or did you even do an analysis whether or not they could have seen what Ms. Martinez was doing at the time of that moment, that 1.5 seconds?
Okay, Officer Andres, from his point of view, would not have seen Miss Martinez at all because of the obstruction. Officer Chastain would see a portion of Miss Martinez, a very small portion, but low, correction, but fairly high, above, chest level. And maybe a portion of her head. So there's very little that he would have been able to observe, including her hands and her legs.
Okay. And in reference to the witness, Lucius Richardson, do you know who that is?
No, it sounds familiar from the IA report.
Okay. I draw your attention to page 14 of your report, if you have that in front of you. I don't know if you do.
I do.
There's a young man, an arrestee, with a basketball jersey, number 14,
Yes.
on it. Did you perform any analysis of what he could have seen during that time?
I did not, no.
I have no other questions.
Quick follow-up. Did you do any analysis of what anybody could have seen besides Andres or Chastain?
No.
Okay. You know the routine about...
I'm talking about the incident at Sallyport.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Because Vickery would have been at scene 1. That's the only analysis you did from scene 1.
Correct,
And then
yes.
scene 2, the only analysis you did was Chastain and Andres.
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
Read away.
Read.
I'll read.
That concludes the deposition. It's 2:30.